Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special stream. This is not our normal setting, and this is not our normal adventure in history. It's kind of history if you look at it in a particular way, but it's the history of this stuff, this Middle Earth thing. Yeah. Yeah, so welcome everybody. My name is Shane, and this is another installment of History of Middle Earth. And you go, what the devil is this? I thought I was coming here for some sort of actual history knowledge. Well, here's the thing. It turns out that among many of the things that I care for and that I am a nerd about, history, of course, being one of them, there is this deep love for J.R.R. Tolkien's fictional universe, Middle Earth. And this has become very clear over the course of me sort of streaming in a regular sense, and as a way to give back and say thank you to my audience. They asked if I would do the history of Middle Earth. And I said that would be a great idea. And so we have started talking about the history of Middle Earth, and it just so happens that J.R.R. Tolkien was incredibly detailed and has lots of notes and wrote a whole history of the founding of this world and the creation of this world and how all of these characters came and went and where all of these things ended up and how this thing affected that thing and so on. And there are thousands and thousands of years of history of really cool stuff that Tolkien wrote that come before even Lord of the Rings. So we are going through what is called the First Age. This is the 6th installment of the history of Middle Earth. And tonight, we've got some good stuff. There's some really great stories that happen tonight. And languages, absolutely. I created a whole bunch of languages, elven languages, multiple elven languages. The Westron language, the Aduniac language, the Dunlandic and the Easterling languages, the Orc language, all of these things. He's a very creative guy and created a whole bunch of stuff. So, yeah, we're talking about the history of Middle Earth. And I know that this is not typically the way that we do things, but if you appreciate the regular old history story stuff that we talk about, I'm pretty sure that you've got some room in your heart for our what am I trying to say here? For our history of Middle Earth stuff. And I just realized that I have been a bit of a bad guy because I have neglected to add our fundraiser goal to this layout. So I'm going to do that, but while I'm doing that, I'm going to talk a little bit about what's going on. So I am currently working with a group of people. I was asked by one of our frequent streamers, DJ Jana, to help with a charity. And we are working with a charity called the Starlight Children's Foundation. And what they do is they work with kids, especially kids that are in the hospital, and especially long-time hospital goers. Unfortunately, situations where kids have been, sort of like long-term, potentially long treatment situations, and they try to get them some fun, right? And they bring in things like games, board games, also video games, and try to help these kids have a little bit of kidness, right? You still want to be a kid, even if we're stuck in a bad situation. And I am having such a hard time remembering how to actually get this stuff done. I'm so bad at OBS. I want to add a source. Oh, here we are. I want to add a browser source. So I apologize for having to do a little bit of housekeeping here while we work on this stuff. There we go. Check that out. No, I'm not frozen. I'm looking and I'm thinking and I'm trying and it's not working sometimes. So there's our donation goal. Boom. Make that a little bit bigger. We did $100 on Thursday night stream, and I was very impressed with the generosity of everybody. So I thought, we'll take that challenge and we'll go it again, and we'll try to do that again for this stream. Romans, countrymen.
Lend me your ear. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him.
What's the little symbol thing on the browser source thing? I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly what I'm supposed to be looking at. Let me catch up with chat because I am behind in chat. Let's see. Not the normal language. I'm going to tell all of my Facebook friends that this is real history. It is real history. You're good. You mean you were Tolkien about the history of Middle Earth? Tolkien regretted that England did not have a deep and ancient mythology of its own, like many other civilizations, so he spent his life trying to create one, especially for the English. This is correct. This is one of his larger motivations. He was a big fan of especially a lot of the Northern European, Germanic, Slavic, Scandinavian stories, these big collections of mythology that they had. And he sort of regretted that England didn't have one. So he sort of went about to make his own. His story of Mean Earth. Okie dokie. Hey, David, good to see you. Valley of the South Coast. It was an OBS thing that you fixed already. Okay, cool. You saw that symbol somewhere else before. Laggy for everyone else. Yeah, I'm dropping frames like mad. I don't really understand what's going on. Yeah, I'm dropping pretty big frames right now. Who knows? Who knows? No, it's doing this bouncy thing. Who knows? Well, I do know that earlier in the day, Amazon Web Services crashed. The entirety of Amazon Web Services went down. So it's quite possible that streams today are going to be affected by this larger outage. That could be part of the issue. Yeah. So hopefully that will level itself out and we'll be okay. It looks like things might have leveled out here. I'm not sure exactly what's going on. Someone turned Shane off and back on again. Oh, I got you. I'm dropping frames like mad. The sunspots, solar wind, all of these things. All of these are perfectly logical. So let me say hello to everybody. I've not said hello to anybody. Hey, JMR, good to see you. Uncle Bill, thanks again. I'm pretty sure you hosted me before I actually came live. Thanks for that. Nix, good to see you. Kyle, as always, hello. My dear wife, she has had to put up with me today. I'd like to publicly apologize to my wife for being a butthole. I had a really bad day at work and I came home in a pissy mood and she did not deserve that. So that's on me. I apologize. I shouldn't have done any of that stuff because I was a butthole. Tropical Geek, welcome. David, good to see you, man. Meg, hello and welcome. By the way, you have a crazy story to tell me about a fan reaching out and ask for a favor. Ooh. Deja vu butthole all over again. Yeah. Tolkien, not a fan, gets ready to run. Meg, no! If it's not your bag, I completely understand. Hangry, I'm Spartacus. Fidelia.
I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus.
Whee! Heart. Thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate the support. I wasn't hangry. Very brief rundown. The last 2 days have been a mess at work. The school decided that we needed to run new Ethernet cable conduit through my building. And they didn't wait until, like break, which is starting next week. They decided to just go ahead and do all of it now. And I have had people in my office, in and out of my office for basically the last 2 days. And when they're not in my office, they're doing stuff like drilling holes through the walls of my office and banging metal pipes in the stuff in the ceiling above my office, and like beating on the walls with things in the rooms beside me. And it has just been it's just been a lot. It's just too much. You enjoy Tolkien, but you think you enjoy him in theory more than in practice. That's okay, and that's fair as well. You can respect what he did without necessarily digging all of the lore. I can appreciate that. If only it were that tame. Now I am intrigued, David. I'll have to catch you up. Anyway, so I was doing this before I got sidetracked, which I'm quite capable of being sidetracked. I just hit the command Starlight. And if you are interested in donating to the Starlight Children's Stream, we are part of a entire streaming, community that is called the 12 Days of Streaming, which runs from the 1st through the 12th of December to try to raise money for Starlight Children's Fund, which again is a fund and a charity that tries to bring some joy to children that are in hospital. And I did research on these people. They spend an incredibly sizable, very legitimate chunk of the money donated actually on the charity itself. They have a very low overhead. They get rated very well on all of the sort of charity rater websites. So there you go. It is Starlight. Boom. There we go. You feel that they are building a new apartment building on your block. Noise-canceling headphones are great. I have headphones. The problem is that they have literally kicked me out of my office now multiple times. So I'll be sort of in the middle of something going at working, and then they'll say, "Oh, we need to get up there," and they'll literally put this ladder on my desk, and then climb around up into the ceiling, and I can't be in the room while they're doing that because like stuff is falling from the ceiling, and they have the insulator filtering masks on so that they can climb around and not suck in insulation. It's a mess. Anyway, so let's talk history of Middle-earth. Where we last left off, you do not have to know everything that we have covered so far. Again, this is installment number 6 of History of Middle-earth. Hey, Ishmanite. Good to see you. You couldn't find an appropriate walking staff. That's important for Middle-earth. There is a lot of walking. If you just get beamed once from falling debris, you get to go home. Well, I did get to go home yesterday because they told me at about 2 o'clock yesterday that I would not be allowed back in my office for the rest of the day. So I just went home early. But I need to actually get work done. It's the end of the term. There's a lot of stuff going on. Anyway, so we have been talking about the creation of the Middle-earth, the gods of Middle-earth, the elves. We've had lots of discussions about the elves. We have introduced the dwarves. And tonight we're going to start off with basically getting ourselves situated. And before we get really deep into this, it is time once again for everybody's favorite. Let's look at the map, right? So here we go. This is the First Age map. The First Age map does not look like the map that you would see if you look at the maps in Lord of the Rings. Hey, Capacitor, good to see you. The land literally gets changed and the big war at the end. But the elves have basically settled in this region right here, which is called Beleriand. And we have all of these mountains that sort of represent the highlands of the elven world. And then we have these nice forests and river lands down here. The big bad guy, who's a dude named Morgoth, sort of the original big bad, Sauron, if you know who he is from Lord of the Rings, is actually only a servant of the big bad. He lives up here in these Iron Mountains, this big fortress called Angband. And he is basically trying to kill everything and destroy everything. But at the moment, he's not doing the best part of it. You see where the Ewoks live? Yeah, they live down here in the forests, right? That's where the Ewoks live. So this is the world that we live in. And we are in what's called the First Age. So the period of time of Middle-earth is divided into many ages. There's the Age of the Lamps, which is the first sort of period of time. Then there's the Age of the Trees, or the Years of the Trees. And then we have the First Age. The First Age starts when the sun comes up. The sun and the moon are not actually made in Middle-earth for several thousand years. There's first lamps and then trees that give off light. And then we get to the First Age, where we have lots of elves living in this area. And one of the things that they're doing at this point is settling down and making kingdoms for themselves. So this group of elves called the Noldor, who are sort of like the best elves. These are the most powerful elves, the strongest elves, the smartest ones, the ones that can do the coolest stuff. They have been building themselves kingdoms. And one of the biggest ones is this kingdom called Vinyamar. Vinyamar. Such great names, right? This is Vinyamar. Woo! It is a kingdom whose capital city is built into the hills of the coastline. And I should note that in many of these situations, there are not what we would call official images that were officially sanctioned by people in the Tolkien estate. A lot of these images are sort of fan interpretations. So if you have read the book called The Silmarillion and you know about Vinyamar, and this doesn't look exactly like what you think Vinyamar looks like, that's okay. It can be Vinyamar in your head if you want. But I know that some people, don't really have a deep level of familiarity with this material, so why not give them a little bit of something to look at? So there we go, Vinyamar, boom. And Vinyamar is one of the bigger kingdoms. It has a lot of different people that live there. A large portion of the Noldor live there. There were elves that sort of hung around in the earlier period of time and did not go over to the Blessed Realm to live with the gods for a little while. And some of them come to live at Vinyamar because it's a cool place and people are hanging out and things are good. And there are a couple of friends, good brothers, if you will. It looks nothing like these in the photographs. Hey, Vipers, good to see you. It is much fancier in the travel brochure. Right. They sort of dress it up, and they only give you the good angles of the streets, and they don't really show you the things like, the slums of the city, and they don't tell you that the entire city sort of stinks. They tell you only the good things, and they only show you the coastline. If you go two blocks past that, man, it's just like, stabby world. So actually, Vinyamar is quite nice. It's one of the better kingdoms in the area. Everybody is hanging out. And the ruler of Vinyamar is this guy named Turgon. Turgon is one of the sons of the High King, and he looks like this. Or an artist depiction of him looks like this. Bum-ba-da-bum, Turgon. Noldor typically have dark hair, and they typically have these sort of very striking features. And of course, they are always very big on the weaponry and armor and such. There's a sex store on the other side of the wall. That might be the case, or a marijuana dispensary. Who knows? Anyway, so Turgon is the ruler of Vinyamar. He has a really good friend. The size of the sword. Yeah, exactly. He has a pretty good friend, a guy named Finrod. And these two guys are going to be important. Here is Finrod, who is a soldier, but also a musician. Bum-ba-da-bum. Oh, musicians. So Finrod is a very skilled musician. But anyway, Finrod and Turgon are good friends, and after the founding of Vinyamar, they decide that they're going to sort of go out on a trip, right? They're going to walk around, hang out, camp, do some scouting, generally just hang out and have a good time, be valiant, knight errants, that sort of thing. And at one point, they are camping beside this river. And the god of the oceans, who's not technically a god, he is a Valar. His name is Ulmo. Ulmo shows up, and he says, look, here's the deal. Date night. Ooh, date night. Kelly, congratulations. Hope it's going well. Also, if I don't know what it would say about me or your potential date if I am the chosen entertainment for date night. But hello and welcome. So Ulmo had always been sort of the one of the bigger opponents of the big bad. The big bad, again, his name is Morgoth. And Ulmo had always sort of been watching this guy. And Ulmo knows that Morgoth is not really done with his badness. He's sort of just hiding and chilling, right? Oh, you meant the bromance. Oh, I see. I got you. Tickle Me Ulmo is your favorite. There we go, right? Oh, Kelly, sorry. I didn't mean to. Sorry. Pipeweed, yes. Dark hair, striking features. It's me. You're a bearded hobbit. David, I don't think you're a bearded hobbit. Does that make Shane McInnes a third wheeler? Perhaps. So Ulmo finds Turgon and Finrod while they're camping, and he goes, look, guys, here's the deal. I know that Morgoth is just plotting. He had sort of run back to his big castle / mountain range when the sun came up because it freaked everybody in the bad side out. Like, holy crap, there's a fireball in the sky. So Ulmo goes, look, I know he's just plotting. So what we need to do is we need to get you all to make some secret hideaways. Basically some kingdoms that are going to be able to be hidden strengths that Morgoth doesn't know about. And I know of a couple of places that I want you all to go, so let me show them to you. So Ulmo sort of gives them these visions of these locations that are super secret. They're kind of hidden away. And he tells Turgon and Finrod, you need to go found kingdoms here. You need to bring some of the people of the Noldor, and you need to hide them away, and you need to store up weapons, and you need to build your populations, because one day Morgoth is going to show back up, and you need to be ready for this. You need to be able to have a place that you can run back to that he doesn't know about. Basically like, hide up. Totally a halfling dwarf, probably delving into deep while never leaving the comforts of your own larders, sporting the chin scruff. Do you like freshly tilled earth? I guess that's part of the question here. Anyway, so Finrod and Turgon are going to go out. They're going to make themselves these new kingdoms, and they do this in secret. So Turgon has some people that are at Vinyamar, and he takes them to this little secluded area in the mountains. There's this valley that's very, very narrow and very long. And when you get to the end of the valley, there's this big sort of open spot in the middle of this gigantic mountain range. And if you just looked at the mountain range, you would never know that there's this big sort of open glade in the middle of it. It's called Tumladen. And Turgon starts building a kingdom there called Gondolin, which will be one of the most important kingdoms of the elves. Finrod had been shown this particular location that the dwarves called Nulukhisden, which I know that everybody is super active of trying to pronounce right now. Nulukhisden, because the dwarven language is kind of a jaw cracker. But he's going to find these caves that had sort of been hollowed out underground by this underground river, the River Narog. And he's going to get the dwarves to sort of help him secretly turn these caves into basically an underground citadel. This is called Nargothrond, and he's going to start a kingdom in Nargothrond. And both of these are going to be hidden kingdoms. We'll talk about a little bit what happens to them in just a bit. But one of the more important items in the entire history of the Middle Earth world gets forged at this time. So Finrod becomes a very good friend with the dwarves. And they give him this name Felagund, which comes from the dwarven language, and it means hewer of caves. So he is Finrod Felagund. And while they're digging all of these caves out as payment, Finrod gives the dwarves some of the jewels that he had brought with him from the Blessed Realm. And the dwarves are like super excited about this. So they take them back to Belagost, one of the big dwarven cities, and they make this item called the Noglamir, which is this thing. Now, I will say that this particular image is pretty accurate. So there's an artist, a very, very sort of big name in the Tolkien world. This guy's name is Ted Naismith. And he was actually licensed and hired by the Tolkien estate to draw a lot of these images. So this is pretty close to what the Noglamir likely looked like in Tolkien's mind. So we see here that it's a necklace, by the way. This is something that would go around your neck, and it's got all of these different jewels. These jewels would have been jewels from the Blessed Realm. We actually do see here that it is titled, if you can read the Dwarven ruins, this says Noglamir. So this is N-A-U-G-L-A-M-I. N-A-U-G-L-A-M-I-R. If you know this rune right here, from reading the Lord of the Rings, if you've ever read Lord of the Rings, the book, you'll know that when Gandalf is on top of Weathertop fighting with the Ringwraiths, he draws this sign and the number 3 to let them know that he was fighting there on the 3rd of October. Also, if you know the letter that Frodo eventually gets when he gets to, so I'm losing my words here. Gandalf left a letter for Butterbur in the city of Bree to give to Frodo. And when Frodo gets to Bree at the end of the Prancing Pony, if you've read the book, you'll know that Gandalf signs his letter with this rune, the G. So anyway, that's a little bit of nerddom, but really cool necklace. And this is sort of like the fanciest thing that the dwarves have ever made. And at the time, it's considered one of the most beautiful items that existed in Middle-earth. And they give this to Finrod Felagund as a sign of their friendship because, that this is sort of maybe weird if you are familiar with the later on stuff where the dwarves and the elves don't really get along very well. Nothing wrong with freshly tilled earth. You prefer to glut on the harvest a few seasons later, though. Don't worry, this generation has used dwarven city names after Skyrim. Yeah, there we are. There we are, Vipers. Hey, Cave, good to see you. Do you think Tolkien sat in his room mouthing out weird names until he found one that he liked? Snekkerafu, Berzaboop, Noglamir, that's it. He actually created a lot of these things phonetically. He made entire dictionaries of these words. And you'll see a lot of them pop up in these words over and over again. So like the word more, M-O-R, is dark or black, right? So you see Mordor. Well, that's black land because the word door means land, like all of the other times that, you see door show up, like Dor Lomin. Well, So you see Moria, the black pit. You see Moranon, the black gate. So he had this whole working dictionary and vocabulary of words, and a lot of the names of these things are just compound words that he put together a la German. Hey, KP, good to see you. All right, so we've got some stuff. Yeah, Morgoth, the black enemy, what a nerd. He is a giant nerd, but he has inspired other giant nerds like me. So while all of this stuff is going on, all of these good things are going on, the big bad guy, Morgoth, who just got named, this guy, This is one of the better pictures I think I've ever seen of Morgoth. He's an evil dude, really bad guy. So Morgoth is plotting. He's hanging out in his capital. He's under the dirt, under these mountains, building up his forces, plotting a big attack. And he spends about 60 years building up his armies because he wants to sort of pop out and surprise everybody and wipe out all of these Noldor and go back to destroying Middle-earth. Yeah, the big bad. Yeah, he is the biggest of bads, right? So in the First Age, year 60, we're going to get this big battle. And if I could get here, this big battle called Dagor Aglareb, which I know everybody's going to like go, you know, hey, that sounds like a great battle name. This is the glorious battle. There had been previous battles, the Battle Under the Stars and such. One hit wonder, yeah. So Morgoth is going to surprise attack all of the elves. This Dagor Aglareb, he blows the tops off of a lot of the mountains in the north. And when he blows the top off of them, he basically spews out lava and volcano ash stuff. So he sort of like hits them with this surprise attack from geological perspective. And this takes a lot of the elves kind of, you know, at a loss. Like, how in the heck do you fight a mountain? Well, you really can't. So they explode, they blow rocks everywhere, they start spewing out lava, and in the middle of all of this chaos, here come these giant hordes of orc. All of these orcs that he had built up for 60 years, and they're just, you know, they're just pouring out everywhere left and right, and the leaders of the elves are sort of taken by surprise. The leader of the elves at the time is this guy. This guy's name is Fingolfin. He is the High King of the Noldor. If you need to punch a mountain in its face, you need the extacles. He did not discover Gondolin or Nargothrond. Morgoth has no idea that those places exist. So this is while those things are being built, he is attacking by surprise. So he doesn't actually know what's going on with these other places. This was sort of like in his own preparation, and Ulmo knew that he was going to make an attack, so he was the one trying to tell the elves to hide out. Most of the elves were sort of out in plain sight, living in places like Vinumar, cities like Minas Tirith, the original Minas Tirith, which is at this point it wasn't actually finished construction. They didn't finish building Minas Tirith until like 65 First Age, or 75 First Age. Anyway, there are lots of elves out there. Fingolfin is out there. They have their capital city. There's a big battle. It's called the Glorious Battle, Dagor Aglareb. Melkor is also Morgoth. Morgoth blows off the top of these mountains, sends out all these orcs, and they get into a really big fight. And the two leaders of the elves, Fingolfin and the eldest son of a guy that was sort of the peak of all elves ever, this guy named Fëanor. His oldest son is a guy named Medros. So Fingolfin and Medros are going to lead their forces victoriously, and they basically wipe out this entire army of orcs. And they push Morgoth's forces back into the Iron Mountains, and then they set up something called the Siege of Angband. And this is going to last for about 400 years, where they basically build all of these gigantic fortifications to watch the mountains. And they're going to, like we see you, we're coming, you're not going to be able to do this again, you're not going to be able to sneak out and do stuff. So all of the big elven princelings and the High King are going to set up all of these defenses around Angband, and Morgoth is going to be utterly befuddled. Like, he's just completely abashed. Like, how did I lose to these guys? how in the devil did I lose to these elves? And this is really going to sort of like start digging around in his brain, and it kind of gets under his armor, if you will. So, around this time, when the sun first comes up, we get the arrival of mankind. Mankind. All right, so humans had been foretold. The gods already knew that the humans were going to wake up. They had known for basically the beginning of time that humans were going to show up, but they did not know when humans were going to awake, and they did not know where humans were going to awake. They just knew that they were coming, right? The humans are called the second children because they are supposed to be the second children. Elves are the first children. Humans are the second children. And when the sun rises, unbeknownst to anybody, the humans wake up. And the region that they wake up is this place called Hildorian. So if we're looking at the sort of larger map right now of Middle-earth First Age, all of these big fights are happening right around over here in this corner, right? So again, this is the Iron Mountains. Here's Angband. Men are going to wake up all the way on the other side of the continent in Hildorian, which is way, way over here. Poor orcs didn't even make it on the list of children. No wonder they're ticked. Yeah. So they're not children of the Allfather. Iluvatar, the High Father, the creator of everything, did not have the orcs in his mind when it came to planning the children. Neither did he have the dwarves in his mind. So they're not one of the children either. Alas. Anyway, so way over here in Hildorian, man is going to awaken. And they are going to spend about the next 70 years moving across this direction. Hey, Snowlock, good to see you. And it just so happens that one of the things that, Morgoth is looking for is the second children too. See, Morgoth had found the first children to begin with, and in fact had created orcs by basically warping elves. He had punished them and tortured them and basically manipulated them so that the high first children, the elves, turned into orcs. And that's where orcs came from. So Morgoth, who's hanging around up here underground, is also looking across the wider world for mankind. Are you not entertained? Hello, Cloud Shifter. Cloud Schiffer. Apologies. Hi, how are you? I can't say words right now. Bum-ba-dum. Welcome. How was your stream? Hope you're doing well. For those of you that do not know, my name is Shane. You always hate that description of orc origins. That's how they came about. That is how the story says that they showed up. Like that torture changes the genetic code. The torture was part of it. The magic that he used on them was the bigger part of it. He had to physically manipulate them. Morgoth does not have the power of creation. He has basically the power to ruin things or to twist things. So he sort of like melded them. And if I were to basically stretch you out and make you taller or pull your arms out, magically speaking, that would probably hurt like the dickens. As a Warhammer 40k fan, I always misspell their names and call them orcs with a K. Right. It was very much like spell torture. Like, he physically warped their features into these horrible figures that were not beautiful anymore. Anyway, and he was hoping that he might be able to do the same thing to mankind. And it just so happens that Morgoth found them first. He found the first children first. He's also going to find the second children first. And when he finds them, he's going to start messing with them. and he's going to basically convince some of the men to worship him. He is going to claim that he is actually the creator. He is going to turn a lot of them into his servants, these evil men, and these people that are going to end up following his sway are going to be referred to forever as fallen under the shadow or men of the shadow. And if you have read Lord of the Rings and you hear Faramir talking to Frodo and Sam about the different categories of men, you'll hear him refer to as the people of the East, the Easterlings, as these men of the shadow, because they had basically forsaken all that was good, and they had been tempted and seduced into evil practices by Morgoth. Now, not all of the men are going to fall under the shadow. There are going to be several groups, specifically 3 houses, that are going to remain sort of true and good and stout and good-hearted men. They're going to end up continuing to move east. So if we look back over here, they're going to cross the Misty Mountains. They're going to get into the region right here, which is Lindon, and they're going to first cross over into Beleriand right around here. And we will kind of pick up with that story in just a second. Now, what else is going on? Well, Turgon is going to complete the fortress at Gondolin in 102, First Age 102. And as he was king in Vinyamar, he's going to basically tell his entire population, the entire kingdom of Vinyamar, he's going to tell them, we're going to move. And I can't tell you where we're going, and I can't tell you how to get there. You're just going to have to trust me and follow me. And because he was such a great king, everybody did. So, under the cover of night, without anybody watching, Turgon leads the entire kingdom of Vinyamar into this narrow valley, down into these mountains, and into this hidden valley called Tumladen. And there they see the kingdom that had been prepared for them, this place called Gondolin. And in 102, Gondolin basically shuts its doors and hides itself, and literally no one else knows where they are. And this is one of the weird things that happens that sort of freaks a lot of people out, because they go to Vinyamar to see Turgon or some people there, and they're all gone. The entire kingdom of Vinyamar is empty. And all of them had gone into hiding at Gondolin. And this is going to be something that really, really starts worrying Morgoth, because he has scouts and spies, and he knows that Vinyamar had been basically abandoned, and he knows that all of these elves are hiding somewhere. He just doesn't know where. And man, does that just eat at him, because he had just been defeated really big at the Dagor Aglareb. He had just been humiliated. He had all these plans laid that just went to utter ruin, and now he's losing track of his enemies. He doesn't know where they went, and that is just, it's really eating at him. Joke's on you, Morgoth. Men kind of suck most of the time already. Well, men here are not very much like the men that are in a lot of the Lord of the Rings stuff, right? Those elves are up to something, right? I see what you're doing there. Those chickens, like Chicken Run. I'm with you. So, Vinyamar disappears. Nargothrond, the big hidden kingdom of Finrod Felagund, it gets completed around the same time in the First Age, and Finrod moves all of his people into Nargothrond. And again, this is an underground cave structure, but it's huge. It's 1,000 caves, right? So it's a big place. It's got air current stuff come in, but the entrance to it is hidden. You have to sort of go down into this bend of the river, and then down into this sort of low depression area, and then you can kind of see the opening to the cave. And Finrod Felagund basically makes it illegal for any of his people to lead other people into it. Like, you can't bring people into the kingdom. You can't show other people how to get in. You can only bring individuals that have basically his specific blessing into the area. And that's going to play into some stories a little bit later on with a guy named Turin. But that's a little bit later on. So now Morgoth has lost 2 enemies. Like, he's lost track of Finrod Felagund, he's lost track of Turgon, and he's itchy. He's just like, oh man, this is no good. This is really, really bad. And in 155, he's going to try to break the siege. He's going to send out some orcs in a patrol, and he's going to try to do this weird thing where he like runs around the back of the mountains and comes down from the north. And they run square into this elven guy named Fingon. Fingon is the son of Fingolfin and the brother of Turgon. And he looks like this. Now, we did talk about Fingon last time. He had basically single-handedly saved Maedhros. Oh, that's a bad pun. Bad pun. Maedhros was being hung from a mountain by one of his hands, and Fingon had basically, you see him here with an eagle. Fingon had ridden an eagle up to save him, and the only way that he could save Maedhros was to cut one of his hands off. So he literally single-handedly saved Maedhros. Ha ha ha. Anyway, right? Well, I mean, again, these are all Noldor elves, so they're supposed to be beautiful. They're supposed to have these like black flowing locks. They were literally the most beautiful elves on Earth. So if you know Galadriel, even in the Lord of the Rings period, Galadriel is considered one of the most beautiful elves that has ever existed. The only other one that ever surpassed her was Luthien, who is actually one of her kinswomen. And this is, of course, the part of Lord of the Rings where, if you've ever read the book, you'll know that Gimli, when he sees Galadriel, is basically stricken. What's the word there? He is staggered by her beauty. And this, of course, goes on to be a little bit of a fun jest between him and I can't say words right now. Oh man, I'm losing my titles. I can't say his name. Stricken? Yeah, something like that. These elves were featured in GQ magazine. Right, like first age GQ. No, not Legolas, not that deal. Man, this is making me feel really bad. I feel so stupid. Anyway, words. It comes back up. Lucas Taver of the Taver clan. Yeah, there we go. Eomer. Hermie, the elf who wants to be a dentist. Yeah, pretty much. All of those elves. I'm sorry. I'm having a moment. Anyway, Fingon. This guy. Sorry, guy. This guy. Fingon. It's probably just me being a dum-dum. I don't know if it's frozen. It's still dropping frames really bad. So I don't know exactly what's up with that. Will Ferrell. That elf. Yeah, we actually watched that last night. Brittany had never seen it before, so we watched it last night. So Fingon is going to crush this counterattack. Basically, all of that was supposed to be part of this thing where Morgoth sends out orcs. They run into Fingon. Fingon destroys them utterly. So this really makes Morgoth upset. He lost the Dagor Aglareb. He can't find 2 of his biggest enemies. And the last time he tried to do anything, it got crushed. And it wasn't even the High King that crushed him. It was like this princeling that crushed him. So Morgoth is going to go back to the drawing board. And he's going to start trying to find new things to make. And new ways to fight the elves. And what he's going to make is Glaurung. Glaurung is this thing. Glaurung is the first of the dragons. The golden worm. Now, note here, the original dragons do not have wings. They are four-legged, non-flying dragons. And Glaurung is going to be created or morphed or whatever Melkor does or Morgoth does. He creates Glaurung, the father of all dragons. And he doesn't even understand how to handle this thing. He's basically made weapons of mass destruction and doesn't know how to keep it. So like when Glaurung kind of wakes up, this happens in 260 of the First Age, he immediately breaks out of Angband and starts running around just wrecking everything. He burns down a whole bunch of the elven villages. He kills a whole bunch of people. He even kills like a bunch of orcs, right? He just sort of wrecks everything because Morgoth doesn't know how to control Glaurung, and Glaurung is this giant fire-breathing waste machine, right? So it's actually Fingon that pushes Glaurung back. Sentient weapons of mass destruction. Yeah, pretty much. He can also speak. He also has magical powers. He can cast spells on you by locking you with his gaze. Glaurung is bad news. This guy's really, really bad. That name translated into Second Age Goblin is Bing Bong the Shiny Lizard. So Bing Bong goes on this big rampage, right? And it's really messy, and it takes Fingon's entire host of elves to show up with their bright, shiny armor and push him back into Angband. And this sort of spoils the story because Morgoth now has made it known that he has these bigger sort of, dragony weapons. Like, they already knew that he had Balrogs, which were bad enough, but a lot of them died in the first big battle between them. Was he created fully formed or as a fledgling that had to be grown and raised? See, we don't know. There's not a lot that's said about the creation of Glaurung. It's suspected that he started with some kind of like actual lizard that existed and then just kind of like turned it into Glaurung over time. So maybe Glaurung was bred. Maybe Melkor / Morgoth just used his power and influence to just bulk him up and give him as much of a sentience as possible. We really don't know. But it's a big, bad, messy situation. And now the elves know about it. So the Siege of Angband sort of tightens down another couple of screws because they're like, man, if he's got more of those things, we're going to really need to make sure that we're watching. And Morgoth is even more ticked. TGRI ooze. Yeah, exactly. Man, I love Ninja Turtles. Anyway, so it's messy. So Morgoth goes into this sort of period of quiet, and this is what's referred to as the Long Peace, and it stretches from First Age 260 to First Age 455, where basically Morgoth does nothing. He sits there, he stews, and he builds. TCRI. Okay, yeah, so you're... Okay. TGRI is what's in the movies, and I'm clearly allowing movies to overrun comic knowledge. That's on me. Thank you for the correction. So, the Long Peace. It's a peaceful time. What's going on? Well, lots of things happen. one of the things that happens is that that Finrod runs into the men. So here is Finrod Felagund. He runs into one of the houses of men. This is the house of Beor, and he's going to sort of talk amongst them, and he's going to learn their language, and he's going to teach them the language of the elves, and he sort of shows his willingness to be friendly with them by playing music for them. And this is going to be one of the biggest friendships that happens between elves and men. The House of Beor is going to pledge allegiance to Finrod Felagund, and they're going to basically become some of his, I guess, vassals would be the correct word for it. This is another Ted Nasmith image here. And this is good because the House of Beor and the other two houses, the House of Hador and the House of Haleth, are going to be three of the only groups of men that made it into the good part of Middle-earth without being tainted by the big bad, by the Morgoth. So they're going to do a lot of service for the elves. All of the big houses are going to end up becoming vassals of the sons of Feanor, who are sort of like the princes of the elves. And there's going to be great friendship between the houses of men and the houses of elves and lords of elves. But an interesting thing happens here. So Beor is actually referred to sometimes as Beor the Old. He's going to serve this really long period of time as basically Finrod's esquire, kind of his like right-hand man, the guy that helps him get ready for battle and stuff like that. Dude, we're trying to sleep. Time for a song, indeed. Hey guys, here's how to suck less. Let me teach you these wise things. But the elves don't understand death, right? So one of the fundamental differences in Tolkien's world between men and elves is that men die. They naturally have death as part of their sort of destiny. And after Beor the Old had served Finrod Felagund for 44 years, he decides, you know what? I have accomplished my life's goal. I'm going to go die. And the elves are like, what do you mean you're going to go die? Like, you're going to go, like, commit suicide by battle? And Beor's like, no, like, we can die. And Beor lays down and dies because men at that time had the choice of when to die. They could just die whenever they felt like it. And their spirits were released from their bodies and they went to the halls of Bandos. And when Beor willingly dies, this freaks the elves out. They're like, oh, what the heck? Like, just and is gone. What the devil? This really freaks them out. They don't really understand this. And the rest of the men are like, yeah, okay. Hey, you Lumpy, good to see you. We actually just talked about a dragon. We talked about this guy, Glaurung. Bum, ba, bum. Yeah, big, scary, nasty, scaly guy. How are you, Lumpy? Good to see you. Yeah, neat party trick. I'm just gonna die. Stop being such a dramatic teenager. At the halfway point of the stream, I do want to remind everybody that we are running a charity drive for Starlight Children's Fund, which is a charity that collects for kids that are in the hospital and tries to get them entertainment, things like games, video games. We collected $100 on Thursday night. You all are awesome. We are going for another 100 because why not? So if you click that link right there, you are going to be taken to a page where you can donate if you are so inclined. If not, that's cool. What you can do is maybe share the stream, let everybody know that we are collecting charity, maybe drive some eyeballs in this direction. Either way, thank you all. Sort of like an intermission here. Everybody, take a bit of a drink and walk around a little bit. I hope you're having a good one. I've got a puppy. Do you want to see a puppy? Kaylee Poop, come here. Come and see me. Oh, yes, here's a puppy. Hello. Hello. Oh my goodness. The puppy says everybody should donate to the charity fund. Right? Right? Hello, puppy. We are actually puppy sitting. We have my in-laws puppy here as well. And when we have the other puppy, this puppy gets incredibly jealous. She does not like the humans giving their attention to the other puppy at all. At all. No, the puppy probably just said, please give me attention. I'm starved for attention. No one's paid enough attention to me today. So, back on track. We're in the long peace. The long peace lasts, again, almost 200 years. And in this period of time, we have one of the most interesting sort of side snippet stories that happens in the entire Silmarillion. So all of this stuff, by the way, is happening in the book, The Silmarillion. There is an elven woman whose name is Auradel. And she is Turgon's sister, also Fingon's sister. And this makes her like the princess of the Noldor. And she looks like this. She's very frequently referred to as the White Lady. She said something possibly anachronistic, like she's from the Bronze Age, and then she told a joke with a punchline that can't be translated. Yeah. That's the funny thing about jokes, is like sometimes they have to rhyme, and sometimes you have to understand the local language to kind of really get the punchline. Otherwise, it just kind of falls flat. So here is Eredel, the White Lady. She had gone with her brother into Gondolin. So Turgon made Gondolin, closed the gates, hid it deep within the mountains. And after spending 200 years there, Auradel wants to go see her family. She wants to... Look at there. KW. Thank you very much. We're working on it. Moving in the right direction. I bet I know who KW is. So Auradel is going to go to Turgon and say, look, I know that we're not supposed to leave. I know that we're not supposed to let Gondolin be known, right? We're not supposed to tell anybody where Gondolin is. But here's the thing. I'm very sad. And one of the things that actually could kill elves is wasting away. They can sort of emo themselves to death. They can die of sadness and waste away. And she goes, I want to see the rest of my family. I want to go see my brothers and my parents, and you need to let me out of Gondolin. And this is a really big decision for Turgon, because Turgon has been basically commanded by one of the gods to keep this location secret until it's the right time. And he also loves his sister, right? He loves Eredel, and he doesn't want her to go away. But eventually he allows her to leave. So she leaves Gondolin. The problem is that she gets lost in the woods as she's trying to make her way back, because Turgon was hiding the location of Gondolin. Nobody really knows exactly where they are or how to get out, and nobody that's inside of Gondolin really kind of understands exactly where they are in relation to other things. So Eredel gets out and then almost immediately gets lost. And she runs into the only reference that we have to someone being referred to as a dark elf. There's this elf called Eol, who is referred to as the dark elf Eol. And he has... this is sort of like your Hansel and Gretel thing, right? So Eol lived alone, which is very, very odd for elves. Elves were very social creatures and lived in big cities. They did not really like to live alone. But Eol lived alone, and he lived in the woods, and he was one of the elves that had not gone to the Blessed Realm. Yeah, Eol is what dark reference? So Eol is referred to as the Dark Elf. So if you see him in the Silmarillion, he is referred to as the Dark Elf. And when you see him in images, like this one, he is almost always dressed in black. So here we see Eredel, the White Lady, meeting Eol, the Dark... Yeah, so it's it's more of a way of life attitude thing and not a skin color thing. So he's not like a drow from D&D or anything like that. He's just this really sort of pensive, shut in, sort of skilled guy. Because he is very skilled. He's a very good smith. And he finds Eredel wandering around in the woods, and he takes her in. And he's like, look, I can help. And he falls immediately in love with her. And this is sort of a like opposites attract. So we have the white lady and the dark elf, and they fall in love, and they get married. He's a neat. He kind of is a neat. And other elves have dark hair at this point, right? Yeah, so most of the elves that are in Middle-earth at this point have dark hair. There are a few that have lighter colored hair, but most of them would have dark colored hair. So Legolas and the elves that you see like in the Lord of the Rings, most of those are Sindarian elves that never left and went over to the Blessed Realm, and they typically do have the lighter colored blondish hair or brownish hair. You don't really find too many Noldor that have blonde hair. You have Finrod, Felagund, Galadriel, but most of the Noldor have the dark hair. He's off the path. Yeah, so he's dark, right? He's edgy. Eol, the edgy elf, right? So they fall in love. They have a kid. This kid's name is Maeglin. And eventually, after several decades of living, Eredel's like, I want to go back home. I want to go back to Gondolin. And here's the thing. She had been made to swear that she would not bring anybody else back into Gondolin because it was supposed to be hidden, right? She was not at liberty to disclose the location to anybody. And Eol would not really rest at this. She wanted to go back. Eol was kind of being a jerk. He was a sort of a verbally abusive husband at that point. He wanted to basically turn their son into kind of a, I don't know, like a version of him. And she wanted to raise their son as like a proper elven princeling like he was. And Eol did not trust any of the Noldor, and she's like, look, dude, I'm a Noldor. Or technically, I'm a Nolda. Like, why would you not trust them? I am one of them. And he's like, they're all horrible, and they're all doing all these things. They're ticking off Morgoth, and he's going to kill everybody, and they're just stupid. So they had this big fight. And Eredel takes their son, Maeglin, and flees secretly back to Gondolin. But here's the thing. Eol is really, really crafty. And he's a very good woodsman, and he discovered Gondolin. And this was a big, bad moment because he knew where it was, and then nobody was supposed to know where it was. So he ends up getting into a big fight with Eredel, and he kills her. This is a big moment. Right, so this is the princess of the Noldor that gets killed by Eol. And at that point, he gets seized and dragged into Gondolin and put on trial. And Turgon, who was the king of Gondolin, has a really difficult decision to make. Eol says, you need to let me go. I don't recognize your authority. I don't care about your kingship. Whatever. You just let me go. I won't tell anybody, right? But Turgon can't let him go. He says, here's the deal. You can stay here forever because you can't leave. And Eol's like, I'm not going to stay here. I'm going to try to leave. So this is what happens. Eol gets brought to the top of the walls of Gondolin and then thrown off the walls and killed. So here's Turgon, who has cast his judgment and turned his back. Here's Eol getting pitched over the walls into the cavernous mountain range where he is dashed upon the rocks and dies. You want the Middle-earth True Crime Podcast. The White Lady killed by her husband. Do you think that the elaborateness of fantasy worlds that academics invent to escape a life of academia is proportional to the prestige of their institution? Not necessarily. I get what you're saying. Like, they put as much into it as they expect to get out of it, or because they have a very high level of skill, they're able to create a depth to it. But not everybody that creates these really deep worlds are super duper academic, you know? It helps because in Tolkien's particular situation, like, he had read all of these other ancient stories and he had translated all of these other ancient stories. And he was a linguist that knew how to make languages because he had studied how they get made and how they change over time. And he definitely was able to pull on a lot of that because he was an academic. But there are people that just have like really crazy big, imaginations that don't have to necessarily be a super duper academic to get the point across. But did he have a cause? If he's a witch, he will fly. If not, oh well. Yeah, so Eol is dead. Aradel is also dead. Their son, Maeglin, basically becomes the prince. His name, by the way, is Maeglin. He becomes the prince of Gondolin. So he's going to come back into another story a little bit later on. So all of this is happening during the long peace. And during this time, you're also going to start seeing a lot of really important people get born. Especially a lot of the really big men, like Beren, who is basically the greatest human that's ever born in Middle Earth. Beren would beat the junk out of Aragorn, if we're just being honest. In a 1-versus-1 fight, Beren would beat the crap out of Aragorn. Huor, who is one of the greatest heroes of humanity. Hurin, one of the greatest heroes. Their sons, Huor's son is named Tuor, who becomes a very big, important figure. Turin, who is one of the most important men ever. On the elven side, we have sort of the last big prince of the elves born during this period of time. This guy's name is Gil-galad. If you remember in Lord of the Rings, Gil-galad was the last of the elven kings that forged the last alliance with Gondor to go fight Sauron at the point where Sauron lost the One Ring. So if you remember Elrond talking about, like, I remember the banners, that big battle was under Gil-galad. So he's sort of like the last big king of the elves, and he gets born during the Long Peace. Why do they have to fight? There's so many glitches in the Matrix. Yeah, it's just dropping. It's dropping frames like crazy. I really don't know what's going on. I mean, I'm plugged in. I've got my internet is actually saying that I have a very good connection. OBS is just telling me that I'm dropping frames. I've dropped like 11.7% of frames right now, which is very sad, and it kind of sucks. My CPU is not running hot right now. It's just something in the connection. Something weird is happening in the connection somewhere. Oh yeah, Batbird, this is part number 6. Have you tried stopping and reconnecting the stream? Cave, I could do that, but then that would split the VOD. And as long as we're not actually dropping stream, I would sort of rather kind of soldier through and have at least one contiguous VOD instead of a couple, even if the back half of it was better. Just for the sake of being able to retain posterity and try to make this as easy as possible for people later on that miss the stream to come back and watch it if they want to. Also, downloading stuff and uploading it to YouTube, which is something that I will eventually do, really starts stinking when you have to edit videos together. That adds a lot of time to the process. So it's a good idea and it's a fine idea, and I do appreciate it. But I think as long as we're not actively dropping stream, I think we'll probably just soldier on. Get on with it! Hey, Depugo. That's why it's still there. You got to go back and rewatch to get that extra 11% of the stream. Yeah. So, you have this great peace, the long peace. All of these things happen. You get these big heroes that are born. The kings of the elves are building stuff up. The men are populating the areas of Middle Earth that they have been sort of settled in. They are forging really good relationships with the elves. They're learning a lot. Men are becoming very valiant. They're proving themselves in the marches. So they're being good defenders of the boundaries and such. The director's cut. And things are going pretty good. And as you would know, as soon as I said things were going pretty good, your fantasy sense should have tingled. And you know that means things are about to not go pretty good. And that not going pretty good is going to happen in 455 with something that's called Dagor Bragollach. Which means the Battle of Sudden Fire. Middle Earth Stream Extended Edition. Oh, now we have both puppies. You want to see the other puppy? Come here, Pearl Puppy. Oh my goodness. So this is Pearl Puppy. This is our, I guess, step puppy. She is Brittany's mom's puppy, and we are keeping her while they are vacationing up. Yeah. So this is the, I guess, not the step puppy, but the puppy-in-law. Oh, come here, you big baby. It's okay. It's okay. They just want to see you. She's very skittish. And she's very yappy. She's not a bad puppy. She's just dumb and yappy. She's actually being quite good right now. Do you have any Grey Pooper? But her name is Pearl, and she's a mess. And Kaylee is about to have a heart attack right now. Do you want to come up here too? Do we want to have a double puppy stream? Oh, I know. I'm giving. I'm giving the other puppy all of the attention. Look, if you're gonna fight, go up front. Yeah, Pearl is very skittish. She gets startled at everything, and she immediately starts yapping at everything, and it's kind of annoying. Yes, oh my gosh, they're so jealous of each other. They're just giant messes. We call them cousins, and they're just big messes. They're so messy. Anyway, Dagor Bragollach, Dangan Fraggle Rock, right? The Battle of Southern Fire, or the Battle of Sudden Fire, not Southern Fire. Morgoth is going to basically come out with all of the big bads. And if we go back to our map and we switch back to map, remember, these are the Iron Mountains. This is the big capital of Morgoth, the big bad. This sort of area right around here, this big field, was called Ardgallen. It's just a big field that was watched, the watch plain. And the elves had built fortresses all along these mountains right here to sort of watch Ardgallen. Well, if the Battle of Southern Fire would be the burning of Atlanta. That's real Southern child rearing right there. If you're going to fight, do it somewhere else. Correct. Yeah, the puppies are super jealous of each other. They are so jealous of each other. My daddy, back off. So here's what happens. The reason it's called Sudden Fire is that Morgoth decides basically all of these mountains right here are going to open up like volcanoes, and this whole area right in here is going to get overflowed with lava. And it basically burns the entire big, thousands and thousands of acres very rapidly, just burns the whole thing. And this catches a lot of elves off guard. The patrols that are in the area basically get swallowed up. This whole area eventually goes on to, they change the name from Ardgallen, the watch plane, to Anfoglith, which is gasping dust, which is such a horrible name for a place. But, basically, you don't go there because everything is dead. And when this big, huge wave of fire and lava stretches out, here come all of the other baddies. So we've got orcs coming out, we've got balrogs coming out, and we've got Glaurung. So the dragon, the orcs, and the balrogs all just start pouring into the defenses. True fact, Tolkien would have loved Dante's Peak. Probably so. Probably so. Gotta love the... what are you doing? I'm getting sniffed by puppies. I'm sorry. He would have loved the volcano aspect. The sudden random volcano explosion, right? So this is a big mess because the defenses that had been set up by all of the elves get basically inundated with fire or lava or enemies. And because of the fire and the lava and the enemies, the forces of the elves can't link up. So this sort of keeps them separate. Instead of being able to unify and march out and fight, they get stuck. And this is going to be very bad because what's going to happen is that because they are bisected or chopped into little pieces, the orcs and the balrogs and Glaurung are going to be able to overwhelm them kind of piece by piece. And this is going to be a pretty bad go of things. Hey, puppies, let's be sweet. Some of the big leaders are going to die. Some of the sons of the big houses are going to get killed. A lot of the leading men who are fighting alongside the elves are going to get killed. And there are some really, really close calls here. Finrod Felagund, the guy that was the king of Nargothrond, one of these big hidden kingdoms, had decided to try to come out and help in this battle. But because he wasn't able to get to basically anybody else, he got surrounded. And basically a lot of his people got killed, and it was sort of just him and sort of his personal bodyguard. And this group of men showed up, led by a guy named Barahir. And Barahir is going to, with the knights of his household, fight through and link up with Finrod Felagund's troops, and Finrod is going to be able to escape. And this is actually a really important moment because this sort of seals the fate of these two houses. So the House of Men under Barahir and the House of Finrod Felagund. And this is going to be sealed with a ring. So if you've ever watched Lord of the Rings, or if you've read the book, you'll know that Aragorn on his index finger wears this really big ring that's got a green jewel on it. That is the ring of Barahir, and it was given to Barahir by Finrod Felagund for saving Finrod's life. So that becomes one of the artifacts that symbolizes kingship for men. So this sort of like if you've ever heard of the crown jewels in England, these things that sort of become the pieces of your dynastic foundation. There are the treasures of the imperial house in Japan. There's a pearl and a mirror and a sword. So there's this trappings of history, and the fact that Aragorn has that ring is pretty important to displaying that he is not only a friend of the elves, but also from the big ruling family. Two intertwined, yes. So good stuff. So there's a direct link there with the Lord of the Rings. That ring itself lasts for the next 7,000 years to get to Aragorn's finger as he's doing all of his stuff. You wore the official replica of that ring? Yeah. So there's a bunch of problematic situation here. A lot of the big lords of the elves die. A lot of the big lords of the men die. And this is going to be sort of the last moment, I guess. I don't know. What's the word here? This is the last straw. Fingolfin, who was the High King of the Noldor, again, depicted here. Another sort of very GQ-ish looking guy. He is going to basically have enough. He's going to say, it's time once and for all to put an end to Morgoth. And he's going to do something that becomes the basis of song and lore. One of the most brave acts that any being in Middle-earth ever does. He rides up to the gates of Angband. And he starts banging on the gates of Angband, demanding that Morgoth show himself. And he starts taunting Morgoth and calling him coward and calling him weakling. And the way that this particular description is done in the book, it's very much that the taunting was such ferocity. The ferocity of the French taunting left Arthur and his knights, that kind of stuff. He taunted Morgoth so badly that Morgoth was basically shamed into going to fight him, because if he had not gone to fight Fingolfin, his underlings would have no longer respected him, right? So that's why the hippies want to overthrow the government. Friendship bracelets. I shall taunt you. Now go away. I shall taunt you a second time. Right? So there is this giant fight between Fingolfin and Morgoth. Morgoth shows up in this dark form, clad in black, with a giant battle hammer and all of this black mail and a giant crown of iron with the Silmarils on it. Because Morgoth, by the way, had captured the Silmarils. Your mother was a hamster and your father smelt of elderberries. So this fight is really like this absolutely epic duel between Fingolfin, the High King of the Noldor, and Melkor. And the battle basically goes back and forth. Every time Melkor strikes the ground, if you see the image here, these big fiery pits, this is actually part of the story. When Melkor strikes the ground with his hammer, he has enchanted it so that it creates these giant fiery pits. Basically, if he had hit Fingolfin with that, it would have blown him up and set him on fire, right? So there's this epic duel, and Fingolfin actually seems to have the upper hand. He wounds Morgoth 7 times with 7 wounds. Were the races of Middle-earth analogs for real-world cultures? Not really. There's some debate that certain cultures were supposed to be certain races, and there's certain linguistic elements that tie certain people to certain races, but not really. The closest that we can come to some sort of real-world analog is if you look at the different versions of men. So if you look at the languages of different men, they tend to line up with certain groups. For example, the people of Rohan, Theoden and Éomer and Éowyn, their people are pretty closely tied to Viking people. Their culture is described as one that's very horse-driven, but if you substitute horses for boats, Rohan is kind of the Vikings. Gondor is sort of positioned as kind of like the British Empire a little bit. It's kind of a mess, though. Tolkien was taking the piss out of the Welsh. There's not really a direct lineup. Tolkien really did not like allegories. He did not like direct metaphors to real world situations. And in fact, he quite openly castigated one of his best friends, C.S. Lewis, for writing such horrible allegory, according to Tolkien. I quite like C.S. Lewis's work. If he thinks the hobbits represent the Irish, I swear I'm going to have a second breakfast. Kind of. Or at least the more idyllic Midlands of England. There are a lot of parallels between Hobbiton and the city that Tolkien grew up in, which was a very sort of quiet, idyllic little city in the Midlands of England. So there aren't really direct parallels all the time. There's some potential overlap and influence, but there's not really a direct parallel. So there's this big fight, and Morgoth is trying to kill Fingolfin. Fingolfin has wounded him 7 times, but eventually the pits that had been blown up out of the ground are going to be Fingolfin's downfall, quite literally. He trips over one of these pits, and Morgoth stomps on him with his giant boot. And Fingolfin, whose body is crushed, spends basically his last strength to stab Morgoth in the foot, and gets through the armor so deeply that Morgoth walked with a limp from that point forward into history. But this is going to be the end of Fingolfin. That's the pits. A quiet little city that was destroyed by Sauron, pretty much, except Saruman. C.S. Lewis, also, hey, Moose. C.S. Lewis's childhood home, Little Lee, is about 2 miles from where you're sitting. Nice! And apparently still contains the same wardrobe from his childhood. Huh. Another reason to go to Ireland, right? I'm sorry, Northern Ireland. There's a whole thing there. That is the pits. So Fingolfin, the bravest of the Noldor that was alive. Who is your friend? Hey, Avern, good to see you. My Govanen. Speak, friend, and enter. So Fingolfin is dead, and Morgoth is very excited about this victory, even though he's been wounded, and wounded to the point of lasting perpetual injury. And you might think that's the end of Fingolfin, but the Lord of the Eagles, Thorondor, sort of swoops down and grabs Fingolfin's body, and on the way out slashes Morgoth's face. Now, if you have been around and you know who Morgoth is, he's actually one of the Valar, sort of like the gods of Middle-earth. And you might be wondering how a god could get wounded. Well, here's the thing. When the Valar came down to Middle-earth, they basically cut themselves off from unlimited power. They had, at that point, kind of a limited reserve of super-powered god charged, basically to last them for the rest of time. And Morgoth had spent a lot of his power creating all these horrible things, like Glaurung the dragon, like Balrogs, like orcs. And when he enclosed himself into this giant evil form, he spent a lot of his power to make this battle form for himself, and basically lost the ability to heal back from that. History of Northern Ireland is a big enough topic for a viewer request. Yes, we could do Ireland and Northern Ireland and the occupation and all of that stuff. That would definitely be big. You would just sit here with your arms folded judging. Rightfully so. Like a phone running too many apps. Yes, there's a limited number of RAM cycles that you can spend. It's more like a battery, though, because eventually the charge runs down, and even rechargeable batteries can't be recharged eventually. So, Fingolfin is dead. This means we need a new High King of the Noldor, and the Noldor are going to meet. You're just trying to get history of potatoes one way or another. I hear you. The new High King is Fingon, who had basically acted as bravely as any other elf could have. He had been the repeller of the orcs in 155 First Age. He had been the repeller of Glaurung when Glaurung bursted out in 260. He had fought well in Dagor Bragollach, and he was the son of Fingolfin. So he is the next High King of the Noldor. And at that point, you might think Morgoth would push his luck. But here's the thing. Morgoth still did not know where Turgon was. Turgon was, of course, hanging out in Gondolin, the Hidden Realm. And he did not know where Finrod Felagund had escaped to. So there are still big enemies on the board that Morgoth does not understand how to handle. So he takes over a lot of these fortresses that the elves had made to keep him in, and he's going to start using those as sort of forward operating bases to cause havoc for the men and for the elves in Beleriand. And that is where we're going to pause our story, because the next one is sort of like the sadness. There's lots of sadness, including a big battle called the Battle of Unnumbered Tears. Things don't go so great from this point forward in the First Age. Do you think Twitch would allow me to change your username to the High King of Thotland? I would think so. I would think that they would probably allow that. Especially like if you replace the O in Thotland with a 0, just to try to, if they messed you up with thought. But they let Aristotle have thought in his name, so I'm pretty sure that you could do High King of Thotland if you really wanted to. But that is going to wrap us up for History of Middle-earth Part 6. But before we go, as always, I would be happy to answer questions. Not just about the stuff that we talked about tonight, but if you have sort of any general questions about various Tolkien-esque things, I would be happy to figure out if I knew it, or maybe give you some direction, hang out, do all those good things, like talk about the stuff that I know. Anybody have any questions about this stuff? I'm at the moment, I'm going to look to see who might be streaming. That's also in the 12 days of streaming, so that we might go properly raid them. No questions, but second the History of Northern Ireland stream. Well, next time we take a viewer request stream, everybody is welcome to kind of throw that in the hat. Or if what's going on here? Am I being asked to rate into somebody here? I guess I am. I'm being directed to raid into Hungriest Clone, which is okay, and that's fine. We'll go raid into Hungriest Clone. Or if somebody has the points, you probably missed so much you don't even know there are 6 parts. Batbird, the great thing is the VODs are still all there, so if you want to go back and watch the VODs, you are absolutely. Yeah, Moose, for History of Middle-earth stuff, I turn off all of the point redemptions because a lot of that stuff is specifically kind of history related, and these streams typically run pretty long anyway, and I don't necessarily want to make them run like 3.5, 4 hours long, because it can get messy that way. Who do you think you are? I don't even know who I am most of the time. I have a decent idea, but I can't conclusively say that I am anybody. Life happens, right? When is the viewer request stream for the Federal Reserve? That's a good question. I don't know. I guess technically it should be next week, but next week is also end of the term, and I'm basically 2 days behind because of the whole office stuff. So I will probably not want to do a viewer request basically 3 weeks in a row. So we'll probably push that to the week. I don't know, because it's your request though. So you're probably going to be gone the week before Christmas. I don't know. Did hobbits have pets? Yeah, they had pets like dogs and cats. So yeah. What gives you the right? Where do you get off? I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm immortal. How dare you? All right. I will remind everybody one more time that we are running a charity drive right now. We'll be keeping this going even through on Thursday. So maybe we can get to $200 to add to the overall stream of the 12 days of streaming for Starlight Children's Fund. We are about to go raid into another Starlight Children's Fund streamer. We've sort of got this whole catalog / schedule thing of we're streaming now, we need to raid over here and do all of this stuff. So we are about to go raid a streamer named Hungriest Clone, which is a great name. Currently playing a game called Moonglow Bay. I'm not particularly familiar with Moonglow Bay, but it looks something around the maybe like Terraria cooking, Minecrafty kind of thing. I don't know exactly what it is, but it looks interesting. So we're going to go raid over there. Hey, Daniel Landerman. Such a good to see you, man. I hope that you're doing well. Haven't seen you online for a bit. I know life gets crazy, but I hope that you're doing great, man. I really do. If you're not already following Daniel Landerman, please do go give this guy a follow. He's a great guy. Very, very knowledgeable about art. Cool dude. Very chill vibes. You'll appreciate it. I didn't do any shout outs tonight. Everybody should go follow everybody. Go follow Daniel Landerman. Go follow Cave Geek. Go follow Batbird. Go follow David Peterson. Who else is in here that streams? If you're in here that streams, you're welcome to spam some emotes right here before we go. Let people know that you're streaming. That's okay, man. I understand. Life gets busy, and you've got stuff going on, and there's, jobs and significant others and partners in life, and sometimes you just need some time to yourself. You need to be able to take care of yourself before you can try to help other people out, and you need to refill the batteries before you can give to somebody. I understand, man. It's all good. I'm glad to see you. I'm glad you're doing well. Good to see you around. All right, so we're going to go raid Hungriest Clone. The next time that you can see me is going to be on Thursday night. We will be on our third night of our charity stream. We are going to be talking about basically the period of time where Rome converts itself to Christianity, which is one of the most important times in all of history. I really do mean that. I'm not just trying to blow that out of the water or blow it out of proportion. It really, really is important. It makes a lot of difference on the way that the world lives right now. So come see me again on Thursday night where we do a traditional history stream talking about Rome converting to Christianity. Until then, thank you all so very much. I appreciate everybody hanging out and the input. The jokes really make a lot of the time go by. Otherwise, let's go see Hungriest Clone. And yeah, so take it easy. See you next time. Have a good one.